Hey there, creepy peeps. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back. If you are returning, as it's the beginning of March and I already recapped everything I read in February, it's time to recap everything I watched in February. All right, so you know how this goes. We're gonna go through Letterboxd and take a look at everything I watched in the month of February. These will also include patron requests. If you don't know, if you are at a certain level of patronage on my Patreon page, that was a weird sentence, you can request a movie for me to watch and talk about each month. So I'll stop for each of those, obviously. Okay, so the first thing I watched in February is Scream, because it's Scream and I just kind of felt like it. Clearly I was in some sort of nostalgia kind of mood because the next thing I watched was House of Wax from 2005. So I was definitely feeling some type of way on the first, I guess. The next movie I watched, you can see here, is Ghost House from 1988. If you remember from my last recap video for when I was recapping January, right? I talked about one of my patrons and subscribers, AZUU'L, created a horror movie challenge for 2020. You can either do it as like a daily challenge or a weekly challenge. I'm kind of doing a mixture of both. I'll leave a link for it in the description. It's on Letterboxd and it's awesome. So I was playing catch up this month because I got a little bit behind. I'm completely caught up now, so there are just going to be a few of these that were technically supposed to be watched in January, but you know how it goes. So Ghost House was for Haunted House Week. You can see I gave it 2 stars. I didn't like it all that much. It was a lot of going in and out of the house, like over and over and over and over. And yeah, I got bored watching it, so it is 2 stars for me. And then I watched Strange Invaders, which was also for AZUU'L's movie challenge. This one was for Orion Pictures Week, and I liked it a little bit less than Ghost House. You can see I gave it 1.5 stars. The acting and the dialogue were just really bad, and I can't really tell if it was on purpose or not. So I kind of just went with like the default with it being not on purpose, and yeah, it was just, I don't know, I didn't like it. And then on the 5th, again, just kind of feeling some type of way, I guess, and a little bit nostalgic, so I watched Tucker and Dale vs. Evil and Tremors, just because I love those movies. And then I watched The Hunger, which was for Long Fang Week, obviously vampire movies, for AZUU'L's movie challenge. I mean, this movie is just like iconic. I mean, I feel like you can't get any more iconic than David Bowie as a vampire. But it was a really interesting take on vampirism. So, I mean, if you haven't seen it, I would highly suggest it. Was it my favorite vampire movie ever? No, but like I said, it's pretty damn iconic. And then I watched Twilight, which was requested of me by Ben. He could have been joking, but I just watched it anyway. Technically, he said he wanted like a Twilight retrospective, which, yeah, it wasn't gonna happen. There was no way I was gonna watch all the movies. I have already admitted many times and will continue to readily admit I fucked with those books. Like when I was in high school, man, did I love these books. Were they the best? Fuck no, but I was a hormonal teenage girl once and I fucking loved them. And honestly, the movie really does the book dirty, I do have to say. It's not that the book is amazing. It's not this like fantastic piece of literature or anything, but honestly, the hate for this book is, I don't think it's 100% deserved. I think a lot of it comes from just the societal hatred of anything that teenage girls like. Because I read a lot of similar books when I was this age, when I was reading Twilight. And honestly, Twilight, at least the first book, was par for the course. Like, I don't think it was any better or any worse than anything else out there. It just happened to be the most popular and therefore it got the most hate. But notice how I'm just talking about the first book in this instance, because the books do get worse and the last one is like a hot piece of garbage. The problem with the movie though, is the first movie anyway, is that they just put all of the like iconic scenes in there. They just put all of the really, like, I felt like they could have left a few of those out and put in some of the like filler scenes that like actually progress the story. So it's the movie is almost just like an anthology of like all of everybody's favorite scenes from the Twilight book, and that's why it makes no sense. Maybe you don't believe me and you think, Vicky, the movie is just trash. The movie is trash, but that's my reasoning why. Because the book does progress mostly logically as you can for a vampire book. Like I said, the movie just cut out anything that wasn't like an iconic romantic scene from the book. That's the problem. I've probably talked about Twilight enough at this point, so I'm gonna stop. And then I watched Tales from the Hood, which was for Anthology Week for AZUUL'S Movie Challenge. This one has been on my watch list for too damn long, so as soon as I saw that there was an Anthology Week in this movie challenge, I immediately put Tales from the Hood. But obviously, as you can see, I really did enjoy it. I thought this was a fantastically done anthology. I love a good anthology, and this one is definitely up there. The wraparound story is clever, and I love when the wraparound story is like a segment in and of itself. It's just broken up, and I feel like the wraparound story provided that little bit of comedy that we needed, because the rest of the segments were very dark and took on a lot of very serious subject matter. So I think the wraparound did a really good job of kind of like breaking that up a little bit, but also end in a scary way, because, you know, if you've seen it, you know how it ends. And then I watched Contracted and It Follows. Both of those movies were for the latest Does This Offend You episode. I will link it up here. There will also be a playlist probably that pops up at some point if you want to watch any past episodes. But the subject for this past one was, like most of our episodes, we set a theme and we kind of end up talking about other things, but it was STDs was like our initial theme, but it ended up being more about like trauma. But it's a very great episode. I say that about every episode. I realize that. That's just because I love Does This Offend You so much. But yeah, you should go watch it. Especially if you want to hear me rant, because clearly I did not like Contracted. And then I watched M, just from that little 101 horror movies you need to see before you die book. That was just for my patrons. I reviewed that for them. I mentioned it before, I'm gonna mention it again. Lizzie, Carnage Candy, is reviewing every single movie out of that book, all 101 on her channel. I can barely make it through October, so I just want to shout out Lizzie whenever I can for doing that, because like, girl, you crazy. So I'm gonna link her channel in the description. Okay, now we're getting into some more patron requests. This one was from AZUUL again. He requested that I watch Villains, and this is a horror comedy about two criminals on the run after a robbery, and they find themselves at the mercy of a sadistic family whose house they've broken into when they go and try and steal their car. The cast of this was amazing. We have Micah Monroe, Bill Skarsgård, Keira Sedgwick, and Jeffrey Donovan, and they were all fantastic. I thought they were all great. They all had really good chemistry, and they each brought a little different kind of brand of humor to the story, and I just thought it was really well done. I don't know, I liked it. I will say there were parts of the movie that dragged for me a little bit, where the movie kind of like got ground to a halt, and I wasn't really so much a fan of that. But yeah, I really like this though overall, so would highly recommend it, even though I didn't give it 5 stars. Highly recommend you watch Villains. And then I watched Fantasy Island. I did a Come With Me review for that. As you can see, wasn't a huge fan. And then I watched The Birds. That was a rewatch for me. It was for Horror Hound Week on AZUUL'S Movie Challenge. So it was a movie that has been featured on the cover of Horror Hound magazine. I love The Birds. I've talked about The Birds at length. Is it my favorite Alfred Hitchcock film? I don't know if I like it more than Psycho, but, or I flip between the two, maybe, probably. And then inexplicably, I just like felt a desire to watch Booksmart and Good Boys. I feel like those were two movies, like when they came out in theaters, I kept seeing the trailers everywhere and they looked like they would be funny and interesting to me, and I just never got around to watching them. And Booksmart was on Hulu, so I really didn't have an excuse not to watch that. So I watched them both. Booksmart was cute for what it was, and Good Boys was all right. I, you know, thought it wasn't horrible, wasn't good. I would love to see a comedy like that though, with young girls, I think. Nothing against this, like it was funny for what it was, but you just never see anything like that for like girls at that age, like going into middle school. I guess except for the show Penis, but yeah. And then I watched Brahms The Boy 2. Again, did a review for this. Did not like it. In short, they took what I thought was really good and clever about the first one and just completely redid it as a generic creepy doll movie, and it was a disappointment. Okay, so funny story about these next two movies. As you can see, I watched Theater of Blood, and then the next day I did a rewatch From Dusk Till Dawn. So I had intended to watch Theater Bazaar for Tom Savini week of AZUUL'S movie challenge. So you're just meant to watch a movie that has Tom Savini in the credits somewhere. So I wanted to watch Theater Bazaar, and when I went to go watch it, I guess I had some sort of like stroke or just I don't know what happened, and I ended up watching Theater of Blood, which I hadn't watched before either. Same with Theater Bazaar. And so I start watching it, and you know, Vincent Price is in this one, and so I'm like sitting there like, I feel like Tom Savini hasn't been credited in this. But I watched the whole movie anyway. I did like it, but then I realized my mistake, and just in a pinch decided to rewatch From Dusk Till Dawn. Yep, you know, I never promised that you would get like brains and intelligence if you subscribe to this channel, so don't know why I did that, but that's welcome to my life. All right, and then I watched The Burbs, which is a request. These next like 4 ones are all patron requests. So Scuba Steve requested that I watch The Burbs. This is another one that's been on my watch list forever and a day, and yeah, I'm excited I got to watch it. It's basically like Tom Hanks, who's lives in suburbia, and all of his other suburbanite neighbors are very paranoid, and you know, like because they're bored, but they get paranoid over their new neighbors, I should say, who they think are like murderers or creepy. They're just creepy and not normal like suburban people. It's a really funny comedy, kind of like with, you know, with touches of horror elements, so very much in the vein of Ghostbusters, Fright Night, Gremlins, that sort of thing. This was also directed by Joe Dante, so it doesn't surprise me that it's related to Gremlins in feel. The end was a little bit predictable, I gotta say, but it was a really fun watch, and I'm glad that I finally got to watch it a la Scuba Steve. And then I watched May, which was requested of me by Chris, one of my patrons again. This is another one that it's just been on my watch list for so damn long, and everybody talks about it all the time, especially around like Valentine's Day, Women in Horror Month, which I can see why now that I've finally seen it. I just loved it. It was just like just like a lot of Lucky McKee's movies. I feel like it's very dark and a little bit comedic, maybe more. This might be like one of the more comedic movies that that McKee has done, at least that I've seen, but like in a relatable way, kind of, because I mean, like, who hasn't had trouble making friends, seriously? And May is just she's got other stuff going on, but there are parts of her that are extremely relatable to watch. And Anna Faris was in this, and I didn't know. What the heck? And then I watched Curtains, which was a request to watch, for me to watch, by Kevin. This movie is about a bunch of women auditioning for a movie role, or I think it's a movie. So they, well, this is a movie, but in the movie, is it a movie? Never mind. So they go out to this remote house with the director to audition, and of course, people start dying. Just for me, I feel like there were one too many characters that, you know, they tried to develop a whole lot of the characters where I feel like they should have just focused on just a few more, because there was a lot of girls there to audition for this role, and I feel like a lot of the movie got taken up by their development, which was like half-assed at best because they were trying to fit in a lot of other characters, and they should have just done like one or two really well, because honestly most of these girls should have just been killer fodder. I will say I did like the red herring that they threw in there, the red herring character, who I'm not going to mention who it is in case anybody wants to watch this, but I really liked that character because it kept me from seeing the end coming. That's part of the reason why the score got bumped up a little bit, because I didn't really enjoy the movie as a whole, but the ending I thought was really well done. And then I watched The End, question mark, which was a request by B. I hope this is the right movie, because there was quite a few that called The End that it could have been, I guess. Could I have clarified with B? I could have. Did I? No. Am I gonna incur her wrath if I watched the wrong one? Yes. But hopefully this is the right one, because I really liked this one. It's essentially just about a guy who gets trapped in an elevator in his office building when a zombie/virus outbreak happens, which I thought was really cool. It was a really interesting isolation horror movie, and I think they did a really good job of keeping you interested, because for an isolation horror movie, this is a very small isolated space, and there's usually nothing in an elevator, right? So I think they did a good job of keeping it fresh and keeping you interested even though you're in such a small and confined space. The only reason why it doesn't have more stars for me was because of the ending. I feel like the ending was, I feel like it was kind of a letdown, and I don't know what I would have preferred happen, but honestly I feel like the movie just kind of like fizzled out and just disappointed me a little bit. Like, it was almost like they thought of like a really brilliant movie, and then they remembered that they had to end it somehow, and they kind of just put in generic ending. So I was a little bit disappointed by the end, but overall the movie was still really good, and I would still highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. All right, and then I went to the movies a lot. I saw The Lodge, which I really loved. Gave it 5 out of 5 stars, which I talked about in a review. You can watch that if you want. I also did a review for The Invisible Man, which I also loved. They actually, I mean, to me, kind of have a lot in common. They very easily could have been part of a Does This Offend You episode on trauma, but I don't think they've offended anybody, but you know what I mean. Speaking of loving movies, I watched The Loved Ones. That was for Patron movie night. We have a monthly movie night with the patrons. We just get on Discord, we hang out, watch a movie, and everyone wanted to watch The Loved Ones. And yeah, I forgot a lot about this movie, honestly. I realized I don't know that I like blacked out like in my brain parts of this movie, but I only remembered certain parts of this movie. So it was really fun to watch again and with a group of people. And then finally I watched Lake Mungo, which was for Ozploitation Week on AZUU'L's movie challenge. This is kind of like supposed to, not like found footage, but I guess maybe like mockumentary story about a girl who drowns in a lake, and her family believes that her ghost is haunting them, and it like becomes like, it's got layers. Like they start to unravel more and more about the girl's life that they realized that they didn't know. For some reason this movie really creeped me out. I don't know what it was. I think it might have been like some of like the camera, like the home video and like the news clips and stuff like that. They looked so good and real. They looked so real, and I don't know, just something about it like really got under my skin. I can't really explain it. Just thinking about it kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. But yeah, so those are all the movies I watched. Really quick, I know this video is super long already. I realized last month I didn't talk about any of the shows I've been watching, and I've actually done, I'm gonna say I've done pretty well, and this is due at least 50% in part to my patrons. But I've been doing well, and I've not watched The Office like 50 million times, and I've actually watched some new shows that I've never watched before. So I'm just gonna go over them really quick because I forgot last month to talk about them. So in January, I watched The Witcher, loved it, bought the books to keep me going until season 2. If you haven't seen it on Netflix, I highly recommend it. And then I watched Carnival, which one of my patrons, Mel Y, in our ongoing Skype chat was talking about this movie. I think we started talking about Adrienne Barbeau, and that's what got her onto this show. It came out like mid-2000s, mid-aughts, and it got canceled after 2 seasons. It's very much in the vein of like the freak show season of American Horror Story, but takes place during like Depression era. So some of my patrons decided to create just like a little TV watching club. It's just a Skype chat where we watch a show and discuss each week. We set like however many episodes we're gonna watch, and then we discuss them. So we watched Carnival, which I really did like. It was ahead of its time, honestly. I think they could easily like try and remake it now or continue it. The world was not ready for this show back in the aughts, and I feel like now it would get a lot more traction. And now for that same little like TV watching club, we're watching Penny Dreadful, and we've just finished season 2, and then we're going into the last season now. I tried to watch the show forever ago, and I didn't even make it past like 15 minutes of episode 1, season 1. I don't know if it's just because I knew at some point I was gonna have a Patreon page and we were gonna watch this show. I don't know what it was, but I just didn't, and I love it. I love it now. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe I was just really distracted and I didn't want to sit and watch a show. I don't know, but I'm glad I finally did. And I also watched the Dracula mini series on Netflix. It's 3 episodes. They're all like movie length episodes. I thought that was a really cool take on a Dracula story. Like, if I'm gonna have to continually get Dracula adaptations, I would prefer them to be something like this, where they make some really cool changes to the story while all at the same time kind of keeping it, you know, true to the material. I really liked it. I know a lot of people didn't like the last episode, but I don't know, I thought it was kind of clever. I don't know. If you want me to maybe talk about that at length, let me know in the comments and maybe I can make that happen. I didn't hate it. I liked it. So that's everything that I watched in the month of February. I checked on Letterboxd. I watched 28 movies, which was almost as many days as was in February. I'm disappointed that I didn't watch 29, honestly. So let me know what your favorite things that you watched this past month are in the comments. Really quick, I just want to thank my creepy patron peeps for requesting all of those awesome movies that I talked about, and for just supporting my channel in general. If you want to find out the perks to being a creepy patron peep, you can follow that link in the description. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're lurking and haven't yet. I post videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Become a creepy peep today. We're a fun bunch, I promise. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay strange. Bye.